on the lecture side of this, and then I want to get over and do some practical, so hopefully you didn't eat too much lunch. I've got some volunteers already picked out. It might be weird that a speed guy is going to talk about multi-directional speed, but one of the best multi-directional speed guys that you've never heard of was Michael Johnson, the track star. And he was noted for how aggressive he was able to run curves in some of the races. And he taught me a lot about multi-directional speed and really never ever trained for multi-directional speed. So you'll hear some of that from Michael in a little bit. But first, I threw some slides in last minute. I love all the speakers. I'm so, gosh, it's so humbling to be up here and share the stage with folks like Joe Kinn and Boyd Epley. And you heard a common theme that I heard anyway, and it was you got to be prepared, right? And if you get nothing else from my lecture, I think that's what I kind of pride myself on, is being prepared, because storms are coming, and I'm kind of a pessimist, but I think we all have storms in front of us, and we've all gone through storms in our life. My family went through a storm this year. This was the Starbucks fire in the plains of southwest Kansas. You probably never heard of it because it doesn't get on CNN. But 800,000 acres were burned this year. It was the worst wildfire in the plains history. We had a ranch of 20,000 acres, and every blade of grass was burned off that ranch. That's basically, you can see the panhandle of Oklahoma in that slide right there, and you can see the breadth of this. We live in Clark County. 98% of Clark County was destroyed by this fire, and it all happened in the span of about 42 minutes. Winds were blowing 60 miles an hour, and it was basically a wall of fire that was crushing down. We lost, there's a blow up of it. We lost 98% of our cattle herd. What didn't get killed by the fire, we had to put down because they were so badly burned. And I don't tell you this to feel sorry for you. I want you to understand that this is the culmination of this is life, and some survivors out of this, and resolve. And this is my godson, and this is the day after the fire. And what do you do after a firestorm like that? When you have resolve, like some of these coaches that you heard up here that have gone through firestorms themselves, they get up and they go to work. And we have 250 miles of fence to build. And what do you do the next day? You get up and you start rebuilding. And that's what I heard. Nobody ever said any of that directly in their talk so far this weekend, but that's what I kept hearing back and forth and back and forth. Be prepared, and then how do you respond when you're slapped in the face? And so I really appreciate you coaches for saying that. And that's really the essence of what everybody's talked about, I think, so far. I am going to talk about multi-directional speed. Hard stop. Get stronger and you'll be faster. I totally agree with that. And I totally embrace the grind. Believe me, I was a walk-on at Kansas State. I understand. I appreciate the grind, and I know how important that room is. I'm not here to replace that room. However, we as a profession can be better than just that room. There's nobody else in this space of performance that sits in a better place to do what we're going to do today than the strength conditioning professional. I'm a physical therapist as well. We're not the right people to do what we're going to do today. But we claim to be the movement specialists because we're physical therapists and we think we're the smartest people in the room, right? We don't know movement like the strength coaches do. Strength coaches that think everything that can be done for the betterment of the athlete can happen in the weight room, that's a little bit short-sighted. And I've learned that the hard way, that there's some nuances that you can add to your profession that makes you a better professional, it makes your athletes better, and it actually sharpens the edge of the sword that you create with that room in there. So we're going to share with some of those today. This is the system. These are the 6 variables that you can sort of change as an athlete. I believe this wholeheartedly, regardless of sport. Those are the 6 metrics that you can move. Those are needles that are modifiable and they're measurable. And I do believe in measuring those things. We have a vernacular that we use to organize our thoughts in this. I think a lot of times in our profession we get confusing because we use different terms to mean different things. This is our vernacular, and I encourage you guys to have your own vernacular so that you're very clear and concise when you're communicating what it is that you do. But everything underneath each of these silos is modifiable and measurable. And within whatever sport you train, regardless if it's football or swimming, there's elements of this that are important to that sport. Okay, so we can change those things. We're going to focus our attention today on the multi-directional speed, that bottom chunk there of the speed silo. Multi-directional speed, in a lot of cases, is people think, well, that's change in direction, or the term agility. It's not just that. And I think we can do better. That's akin to saying speed is just top-end speed. We all know that speed now is about starting speed, acceleration, transition, top-end speed, holding speed. We've gotten better with that, right? Why can't we be better with this catch-all term of agility or change in direction? So I try not to use the term agility too much, and you'll understand why in a minute. But that becomes kind of a catch-all term. Really, we want to get away from that. Speed, for us, multi-directional speed is speed when you aren't sprinting linearly. So athletes need to be fast even when they're not sprinting linearly. And if you're a student of sport, and my mentors have taught me this, Pete Martinelli indirectly taught me this through his folks underneath his family tree, the Jurassics of the world and the Princes of the world who you've met, to watch movement, to watch practice. Joe, why are we standing out here watching football practice? That's where you learn. You don't learn from a textbook. You learn from watching reps of those athletes doing what they do on the field. And if you watch closely, you'll see that some of the monikers of the fast people is not just when they're running straight ahead fast, but they can move laterally fast. They can cross over fast. They can shuffle pedal fast. They can back pedal fast. They can graft back pedals and shuffles fast. Okay, so that may be another piece of this multi-directional puzzle. So we break it down into three sort of, and this is kind of the old version here, is that there's change of direction, deceleration, and then there's this grafting of putting pieces together. I gotta tell you something, guys, and I taught deceleration for the better part of 17 years. The fastest humans in the world do not decelerate when they change direction. Where do all the injuries happen? What part of the phase of movement? Deceleration. Why are we teaching people to decelerate? I'm so smart, I'm stupid, right? Because I've been teaching deceleration. We need to teach them better to decelerate, but when you look at fast people, they actually don't decelerate, they accelerate in opposite directions. And you're thinking, well, that's the same thing. It's not. Use the analogy of the airplane that landed when we flew in. When the airplane touches the tarmac, what does the pilot do? Does he slam on the brakes? What does he do? Reverses what? Reverses the thrusters. That's how he slows down. It's kind of the same mindset with fast people. Ndamukong Suh was one of the best agility athletes I've seen at 311 pounds when he came in. He didn't stop, turn, and change direction. He accelerated in the opposite direction. Okay? That's a brain teaser. We'll talk more about it. You got to watch movement. And so here is what I think is a good example of multi-directional speed. Watch kids move. See if you can watch movement here. If you need to scoot up, come up and take a knee. Scoot up and see this. It's the predator-prey. Watch the Animal Channel sometime. Watch that Africa special. The cheetah chasing down the gazelle. Okay? There's elements of changing direction. There's elements of angular speed. They're not running straight ahead. They're actually running on a swerve, or they're running on an angle. But they're nasty fast when they do that. And then when they change direction, they're not stopping, restarting, and going the other direction. They are actually accelerating in other directions. Those that don't become highlight tapes, right? So you got to watch movement, and I got to watch more movement too, but watch kids move. Watch kids move. Don't just watch your NFL and your NCAA guys. Watch kids move. It'll teach you a lot about human movement when it comes to multi-directional speed. We've even developed a rubric that we figured out that age-specific elements of multi-directional speed are more sensitive at certain ages. We call it synergistic adaptation. That when you're 11 years old, there's specifics of multi-directional speed that are most sort of zestful to get the training stimulus. It doesn't mean you can't change direction and agility and all that. You can't do all that other stuff with them. It's just the bigger return on investment may be better spent on specific parts of multi-directional speed. And I'm all about ROI. Time is the biggest resource, right? So this is a part of a certification course that we're going to roll out this year in China and be in the United States in 2018 that sets up our entire movement sequencing for our young athletes ages 9 to 18. We'll talk more about that at some point later on. Here's a couple of elements of multi-directional speed. One of these is a natural cut. One of these is a speed cut. One of these is on the inside edge of his outside foot. The other one's on the outside edge of his inside foot. Can you see the two differences there? There's mixtures, and it's not like this mutually exclusive thing, one or the other. There's blends, there's graftings of this. But this starts to bring your eyesight into learning about human movement when you can start to pick out some of these things. One has a very extreme shin angle in the opposite direction, and the other one does not. So I can already pick up some qualitative things just from looking at a still photo of these two cuts. The natural cut is right here on the right, and then the speed cut is here on the left. That's Niall Davis of the NFL, was a tremendous L drill runner, was not as great as a COD, as a change in direction guy on his pro agility. We'll talk about why. But if you look at angular acceleration, it's all over the field. NFL, it's all over the field. Soccer, it's all over the field. Most of the agility or multi-directional speed is not changing direction, it's actually angular. And if you break down enough tape, you'll see it. They're doing a lot more distance at a lot more intensities, doing these angular sort of swerve runs or speed cut sort of things than they are these hard stop and starts. Okay? So watch some tape and you'll see it. A couple of drills at the NFL Combine. One is the L drill, one is the 5-10-5. Why do they have two drills? L drill is more for the angular side of speed. If you run the L drill incorrectly and try to turn that into a change in direction drill, you will suck. And I still see people teaching the L drill, what I think is incorrectly. It's certainly inefficient, where they're actually stopping and sticking each of those cones. Why is that slower? There's 3 decelerations that happen then. Eliminate some of those decelerations and begin to teach those folks how to accelerate in the opposite direction. They have better L drill scores. The NFL likes L drills for certain positions, I'm telling you. They also look at the difference between the L drill and the 5-10-5 drill. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we start to break down those 3 elements, and there's sort of physical things that you can change to optimize those 3 elements. There's qualitative things. There's shin angles. This is the inside edge of the outside foot, the outside edge of the inside foot. When you're trying to change direction going downhill, this is a great analogy. If you're trying to go back that direction, you better get on the edges of your skis, right? If you don't, you end up off the mountain. So being on the edges of our skis, the edges of our shoes, using external cueing is also going to help us when we teach some of these multi-directional skill sets. Watching non-human sports, watching motor sports can also help you. We learned a valuable lesson when we worked with the Formula One race car team with Williams. When those guys enter a bank, a turn, they don't apply the brakes. You know what they do? They downshift and hit the gas. Why? It gives them downforce on the car. They have a fin on the front. They have a fin on the back. The more air they can push over the top of those fins, guess what the car does? Sticks down. My mic just died. There it is. If they decelerate, slow speed down over those fins, they don't get as much downforce on the car, on the track. That's when they start getting a little loosey-goosey. So they don't apply the brakes. They're actually accelerating or torquing up around those curves, accelerating to change direction, as well as extreme angles that you see on motorcycles. So we learn a lot. Nike taught me a lot. I've got a third party in my gym that tests all of our training. They don't give a rat's butt if we get people better or worse. All they care about is creating better shoes. Unfortunately or fortunately for me, they tell me the truth. Hey, Lance, over this 6 weeks, these guys did not get faster. Oh, by the way, your 40-yard dashes, you got faster in 3 out of 4 segments. Section number 2, you actually got a 10th slower. Congratulations. They don't care. They don't care if they hurt my feelings. They want to create a better shoe. We had an experiment with them to create a shoe to beat the 40-yard dash. We did. Didn't quite beat the 40-yard dash. The shoe is now illegal at the NFL Combine. It's too fast. It's not a game day shoe. The next year, we decided to build a shoe to beat the 5-10-5 test, which is a change in direction test. This is the shoe. Before we even got a chance to really do much with it, they made it illegal on the day that we started using it. But the idea was everything was engineered in this shoe to create those edges for change in direction. However, we had an athlete try to run their L drill and their position work in this shoe. And guess what happened? They were falling all over the place. Why? Different skill set. One athlete, his calves were completely bloodied. Because when he's running angles like an L drill or running 7 routes, when he's cutting, the shoes come very close together. The feet positioning is different than on the change in direction 5-10-5 drill. What did that teach me? Well, 1, it taught me that those 2 things are very different. Number 2, it taught me this shoe was designed for people to be faster in change in direction. So we are creating their ability, we're enhancing their ability to get on those edges. So it was a pretty cool experiment, but it ended up teaching us a lot about change in direction too, because inevitably what we ended up finding out was we made people faster in change in direction, but they were worse in change of direction. So I'm here to tell you the 5-10-5 test that we all know and we all love, unfortunately, does not paint the whole picture of change in direction speed. You can make someone better at the 5-10-5 and actually reduce their ability to change direction. That's spooky, right? We learned that from this, and that was a cry in your beer night. Congratulations, you did better on the test, you just made them worse for their sport. Ouch. Several tests that we use, the 5-10-5, that's going to be our change in direction test. I still like that test. I tend to break it down, though. We'll break it down a little bit in a minute. The L drill is a little bit more angular in nature, so that's going to get some of those edges where you're running, some of those speed cuts instead of those natural cuts. And then there's a little-known drill, or maybe you've heard of it, the Illinois agility drill. We use it with our kids. That's almost a completely angular drill. Completely angular drill, and I encourage you guys to look up some things on the Illinois agility test because it's great, especially if you train kids. In teaching them how to maneuver around objects without slowing down, to maintain acceleration when otherwise they would try to stop, start, restart. Okay? The L drill. It's usually a mixture of both the angular and the short change of direction. It can be compared to short change of direction tests to assess how good it is. 5-10-5 is the same way. When you compare these two, you get an offset. Joe Jurassic taught me this. The L drill versus the pro agility. Comparing those two numbers can give you a little bit of a hint as to which side of the equation that athlete is more biased towards. Assuming both of those tests are good, if their L drill is a little bit better than their COD, which it should be, the offset optimally is about 1.7 seconds. If it's more than 1.7 seconds, we would assume that that athlete would probably be better served with time and resources on working on an angular agility bias. Do this with your entire team, and you might find out, you know what, this year's team needs a little bit more angular work than they do the change in direction work if you're using those two tests. Again, it's just making you just a little bit, just a shade better than the next guy, right? It's not saying you don't go out and do both. That's great too. Okay? This is just making you just a little bit better, just tweaking a little bit. The other optimization that Joe taught me was the field speed versus the change in direction speed. I think Boyd talked about this a little bit as well. How fast are they straight ahead versus how fast are they on that 5-10-5 drill? Some of the optimization there is 0.5 seconds difference. If there's more than 0.5 seconds difference, that tells you something. Speed training bias. If they're less than 0.5 seconds, that might need to be a multi-directional speed training bias. Again, using data to kind of draw in a little bit more and be a little bit more targeted with your work. I'm here to tell you there's a new test that we're starting to use now that we really like, and it's called the Cov Deficit. And basically, it's the second 2/3 of the 5-10-5. It's a 10-yard sprint. We're going to measure the 10-yard sprint. We're also going to measure the 5 to the 10 of that 10-yard sprint, and then the 5 back to the 5 of the backs. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a 5-10-5. I go 5 this way. The clock starts when I leave this line. I have a timer at the 5-yard point, and then I have a timer here that picks up my change in direction and times out how fast I can get back and forth through here, as well as how fast I was in 10 yards. We do it right. We do it left. It's a Cov deficit check. And that's the one that'll surprise you. Oh, look how much better my change in my agility scores are. There's no guarantee they're going to get better in this COD thing. This, whatever happens in that space, and that may, friends, be really the essence of what you're trying to do in the first place. So stay tuned for some COD deficit stuff. The Illinois agility drill we talked about. Here's a sample drill I think we use with the kids, and this is a figure of 8 run. And I show this because you see what this kid's trying to do? He's trying to hold that edge, right? Because we're telling him, don't stop your feet. Don't stop your feet. That kid, see what that kid did pretty good there? He got his eyes around. Did you see that? The eyes lead the body. We have to incorporate the skill component into our agility even more now with these younger athletes because that's the big deal for them. You can tell this kid here has done it a few times. Look at him leaning. His arms kind of stop moving. Versus the other kid here in the first one here. Watch how wide he gets. See what's happening there? He's getting, his hips are stuck this way. He wants to go that way. Eyes can lead him in and out of the turn. You're thinking, how does this help football? If you can't answer that, guys, you're not watching enough football. That movement happens in football all the time. It happens in soccer all the time. Right? I see some head shaking, so I'm assuming I'm not the only one that sees that. There's drills for that. I mean, here's a sample drill where the athlete's going to run in on whatever skill they want to use. If it's a sprint, there's a reaction cue, and then there's a change in direction or a re-acceleration in a different direction. What we want to do is focus on minimizing the amount of deceleration that happens while that all goes on. That's a sample example. I mean, everybody's using those sorts of drills. There's the box drill where they run into a box, they react on the box, and we apply some sort of mixed movement skill from a back pedal to a forward run, from a forward run to a crossover to drop step and turn and run. Again, just setting up a 4-yard box. They run in, they react, minimizing that deceleration and actually timing that distance, giving some metrics of understanding how much are they decelerating. Okay? There's different angular acceleration skills, and we're going to do that next. Backpedaling, kick sliding, shuffle pedal, shuffle, crossover run, zone drops, radian runs, speed cuts, and natural cuts. That's movement, folks. That's movement, and it's something that you guys can help with. You can improve. You can get them stronger. You can get them in better shape, but you can also improve it. You can put a fine razor's edge on all that work that you've done in there, and it doesn't take all that much. That's the beauty of it. It just takes some high-quality work on your part. Okay? So regardless, now we're going to go through and I've got Coach Caton and Coach Collins have provided me a couple of, yeah, you guys didn't know, did you guys know you're going to be doing this? I don't know. And then Coach Collins has got a couple of guys too, I think. They're already over here. You guys want to come on over. You guys, the rest of you want to start to kind of stand up. But what we're going to go through is sort of a theme-based approach to multi-directional speed. Just like everybody's training sessions, I'm assuming you're doing some theme-based work. Starting with a warm-up. So it's reactive with power, movement, force, metabolics, and regen. You do that every day, regardless of speed. We're going to do a theme-based speed on next thing, we're just going to get into some energetics. So the skip series, we're going to run all I want to do is skip series. Skipping forward to this 20 yard mark, and then back and skip forward. We're just skipping. All we're looking for is to go to the ground. Once you get to the ground, you're going to go backwards skip. You can kind of go for a regular left now. If this happens, you're not going to go on that. Again, let's tell it across the body. Swing the arm across the body, so let's skip forward. Looking for a rhythm. Send it through. Backwards, put your arms on. Back. Take it. Good. Look at the line. You're going to come out. You're going to do a sweep. Very low intensity. This is just energetics. It's shaking the things up. Good. Now you're showing some lows. High, lows. High, lows. Keep moving. Shut swing, high, low. And you can watch that if you're early and still moving while I go low. Back there. That's going to be a bit of a more. Watch and see if some of them start to slow down on it. See if they actually stop moving, or if their feet get all visible out there. See the tempo change right there? So basic energetics. They can do a crossover skip. Crossover skip clouds, and we're skipping, and we're skipping into the crossover. Like in the 90 crossover. Basic stuff.
behind stick. So you drop behind. Derotating it. Everybody knows going to try and face the weight. Also watch for coordination. The coordination challenge here, right? Okay, so then the next one, we can get into a lot of different thermogenics. Go through the process of getting the sweating response. From that point, we're going to get into activation. The activation series, I think I'm going to show you guys for the specifics of multi-directional. Take your double untitled. I'm sure you guys get that one. Basically, this is one of the best investments you can make. So the first one I'll teach you that we think is pretty important for multi-directional speed prep activation is going to be what we call safety. You can call it position. So stay flexible. In the base position or the balls of your feet, all we're doing is working femoral external rotation. In the base position, the shoulder is back. In the other position, you're going to strike someone. And all you're going to do is take your kneecap and put your kneecap outside the shoelace of the shoe and back off the shoelace. Without the opposite move. You can do this as a 9, you can do that at 40 seconds. 4 good reps, you do the rest of 15 seconds. What you're looking for here is some of the interesting nuances of how they get external rotation. How's this guy getting external rotation? Look below. He's getting it from where? He's actually getting it from abduction. That's why his ankle's having to rock out like that. It's telling me something about rotation. You can add feet to this. You can add from there. You can get a 6 inch you want. So this gentleman here, I'm going to look at some of his hip rotation mobility. This is going to be something I'm going to pull him aside and take it. Good. Now stack your stance while laying in front of the left. And I want you to put most of your weight on your right foot. Now this is you see how little it is? That's fine. It's a small amount of motion. 15 right and then 15 left. So this is the quick little thing right here. Very, very quick and easy to do. That's one of our favorite rehab motions. You're going to see how important it's going to be the rest of the drills. The next one, after we've done the photobility, you can switch it down and you want to look at some of our favorite mobility exercises. Everybody does the bridges, and you guys go through a 4 sequence, I'm sure. Add this one to your 4 sequence, I think you'll find it pretty effective. So we take our feet and get into a base position with our feet. You can keep your heels on the ground, set the spine against the ground. You're going to internally rotate your left side as you externally rotate your right side. So you're going to do windshield wipers. Here, back. Here, and back. Now, I know you all do this, and I don't mind a little pelvic rotation, but if I see the initiation with the pelvis, they're probably stiff. Usually I like to see the internal external rotation happen separate the pelvis first, and then the pelvis can follow it over. But all the time, we're talking about them staying tight here. So I'm going around my athletes and I'm punching here, but I'm only punching the gut. So we want to teach this rotation and stability above. I disagree with Stuart Gill. He doesn't like rotation. He's not logical in the right angle. You need to get a lift and look at the sports from the top down. You'll see all rotation has to happen in athletics. Sprinting and food. They go back home by rotation. So if You're doing all this anti-rotation all the time. Rotating. Much harder. This is rotation. Another place that you might add to your mobility sequence, you guys are all doing the scorpions and the hip overs. Scorpions is a good one. Go on your tummy. Everybody's doing the scorpions now. You're going to touch the right heel to your left index finger. Again, what I think you're going to notice is this is a good hip opening movement. Joe used to have the guys do this before we hit the weight room. You look for symmetry across the hip. One of the common problems I see with this is a lack of knee flexion with hip extension. The long hip of that rectus is tight. Okay? They can get hip extension with the knee straight, but they can't with the knee flat. We're going to need that when we're doing multi-directional speed. So this is the scorpion group just making it a bit better. So you can see this athlete here, bend the knee, extend the hip, like there. How does he get it? He gets it with lumbar hyperextension, right? Hyperextension with rotation, I do not like it. When we're doing multi-directional, flipping our hip, hips are tight. What are we talking about? In this case, transference of the hip is not going to be a problem. Another area we're really going to work on, we got to work it up. Of course, it's better. What we're going to do is one of the reasons is that it's stiff in the end. Stiffness in the end is going to be it's called snap. Movement with mobilization. Basically, what happens is this tibia, it's not down the toe, it's supposed to. You can stretch it all the body. So therapists will come in and do joint mobilization. Basically, this is providing a posterior shear force as he drops on the dorsal flexion. What we want to see is the knee get out of the ankle, not from the big toe out of the knee. It's kind of all over the excursion out front. So you guys go about 15 reps forward and back, trying to keep your heel flat. You can provide them a stick as a guidepost. You want to get out there and you want to get outside of that stick. Take the knee outside of that stick. After that, we're going to go. Feel as you do this is a slight sort of posterior toe on that tibia. Get some of that. One time you ever do that? I can do it. So very, very basic mobility, activation. Oh yeah, next one you're active. So what we want to do is your session. The next part of the session is going to be reactive. It's really not that. If you believe Twitter, it's really not as the devil. It's ridiculous. Like the guy that had the sickest agility or whatever, you have 497 and see him touch out. If he looks good in it, this is not an agility tool. This is a precursor to it. This is going to help you with the reactive footwork. It's going to help you with it. It's not any sort of though, but it's going to be it's a really ingredient if you do the right amount and the right location. Cool? So some of my favorites from multi-directional, you may have heard of it. First one is called the kicking shot. So the kicking shot, you got all the kicking shot. Right? Show me the kicking shot. It's the most famous part of all time. Kicking shot, right? That rhythm. change the direction of it. I want to let it go anywhere. I want to keep it going constantly. Again, you're not just going. The rhythm should not change on this trip. You're not going to do it. How do you do it? This is your constant. Next, you go back. You still see that heavy light, constant motion. He's got it so ingrained in him that it's going to get shuffled. It's going to be hard to rewire that. So we do what's called Gallo. Joey Galloway, one of the best receivers I've ever seen, using his linear speed to get out of rights. He would run from that. He would literally run right. He would run right. He would run. He would not step it out. He would run right. Galloway shuffle is just 2 in and get at least 2 on the outside. It's going to be 2 in, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Feet are like a sewing machine. Speed stop. That's going to show itself up when you go. Stop. Sewing machine. Sewing machine. Sewing machine. Sewing machine. Sewing machine. Sewing machine. That's quick. Keep moving. Come on, coach up. One cue. Come on. Do not let the arms stop you. Good. Do not let the arms stop you. Come on. Come on. Just use your elbows. Bump your arm. Bump your arm. Good. Start at the edges, start to show up on the feet. Right? The inside edge of that outside foot, outside edge of the inside foot as they can. Good. The other thing with the arms is a trick you can teach. You can keep the feet moving. A lot of people say the arms don't drive the legs. I'm not confused by that. You guys can always jog this one really slow. You see this trick? Super slow. Super slow. When I say put your arm up, swing the shoulder. Not the elbow. I'm not trying to drop the hammer. I'm trying to swing the shoulder. What I want you to do is jog. Don't change your jogging speed down here. But I want you to start keeping the elbow that fast. No, I said don't change it. Come on, faster. Don't change it. Faster. Your feet speeding up. Guys, I'm here to tell you these two things are wired together. You can't speed this up without this speeding up. Again, that's a simple rule on the ladder. The common fault here is this stopping. Starting. It's okay if you're working change of direction. It's not something that we're going to work on a lot of multi-directional or angular speed. Last couple. The tapioca series. Wishbone C graders. He taught me this one. Tapioca. It's just this little goofy looking little thing. Right over like that. Rotation in a phone booth. So it's just a little tapioca joint. Watch the rotation. Watch the rotation. Very nice job. Now the hard one. This is for all those guys that have to back pedal and cover. Soccer, defenders, midfielder, defender. Defensive backs, linebackers, special teams players in football, basketball players, they're hawking somebody, being lazy. Do that same drill, but do it backwards. Backwards can't go. I don't want you to cross right over there, left over right. Right over there, left over right. I literally want you to get here. I literally want you to get out of it. If you are there, you're turning your hips, but you're not crossing the feet over, right? I literally want you to get out of it. You're pulling down your feet out, right? Yeah, watch out, hey, you see all the time. You're going to get your feet crossed out somewhere. It's your scapegoat. How are you going to respond to it? Try that one today. Try that one today. See if you can do backwards tap in. We call it out of position movement. And my linebackers hate it because they're like, I'll never do that again. See, I've taken it over with it. Now we'll land into some of this other stuff. So those are some of the sort of the reactive things. The last of the power we'll get into, but that's basically if you're doing plyometrics and you're working anywhere, make your plyometrics traveling, not stop and going back the other direction. Here's an example. So this gentleman's going to be doing lateral bounds. And then you're doing a lateral bounds. He's trying to do distance lateral. What he's not trying to do is see how high you can go. He's going to travel this direction. We want him to feel himself being propulsive in this direction. I don't mind if he rolls off. He's really feeling propulsive. Not where he's having to try to stick and go back in the opposite direction, right? The theme is get going. Minimize deceleration. So we're going to try crossover now. Okay. That's a good cue right there, right? A little closer. The point is not a higher barrier. If we're going to intensify this, what should we do? Move it out. It's not higher. It's wider. We're trying to do what's crossover down. We're trying to see his center of mass move across and not. Right? So those are things that can kind of make you think. Specific to the speed parameters that I'm trying to train. So the next one then, once you've done your power, your reactive, your warm-up, your mobility activation, now we're 30 minutes in, it's time to move. I asked my mentor, from the trio of Pete Martinelli, who I never got to physically work with, although I know very well. Coach Jurassic taught me a drill. And this is a drill each and every one of you guys can take home and start using on Monday, no matter what sport you train. It's going to help them with some of these angular speed kinematics. I call it 20 yards of cones. Some people call it Jurassic Park. We had a bunch of different names for it, Joe. But you guys want to give a hand to Joe, I want to let him come up and teach you guys. Okay? Joe, you come up and help us a bit. I want you to come up and help me with this. So I'm going to give the mic to Joe, and we're going to do the L runs, W runs, and the Z runs. You just want to tell him to shuffle the whole with that one first. So I'll give Joe the mic and let him tell you what he's looking for on these drills. As I coach these guys, I've got 15 yards of cones right now. We typically went 20 yards of cones, I think. 20, 30, 40. Right, so we would extend it just for the sake of revenue here. What I want you to pay close attention to is the intensity. It's not as high as you think it needs to be. The intensity is going to come from some of the angle angles. Watch very closely as we go through this. Coach, just want to tell them what we're seeing. First one, guys, we're going to do the shuffle. We're going to start here. You're just going to shuffle across. It's a low intensity drill. It's like 50%. You're just going to shuffle across. This cone here. I just want you to stick inside edge. If you're outside foot in the ground, just roll up to the next one. Go around the cone and shuffle across to this one. You picture it? 50%. Go ahead. So you're right here. You're here. Your eyes on. You look here. Inside edge of my accelerated foot. I'm not moving. I'm not moving. Later progressions.
Laughing water on your head. The plane has a gyro, whatever it's called.
Next guy goes when the first guy gets to this gun. Squeeze the turn. There you go. Now as you push off inside and squeeze this turn.
Beware of the field. You know where you're at. You have to look. I'm on a 50. I know that next one's a 45. Where dashes are. Where go are. Accelerate all the way through. Last one's all the way through. Accelerate all the way through. Last one's all the way through. All the way through. Under the cone. Under the cone. Under the cone. Go get it.
Good. Good. Simple coaching cue. Low intensity. We're not blowing them up. We're looking for quality.
Choreography.
Next. Now we're going to start this constant motion. And this is one that'll be sneaky intense on you if you're not careful. So we're going to start at that cone there. You're actually going to run what we call running L's or L's. The idea is you just create an L shape without ever stopping your feet. Like that sewing machine. So I'm here and I don't care if this pace, I'm going to pump my elbows and I'm going to keep my feet moving.
Never stop your feet on the field.
You keep moving, you start to work your eyes up, and look at the next cone before you get to the next one. Good.
Hands are last thing.
Good.
Where principle, fingertips, fingers, thumbs, say do not break.
Look for the next cone next. Next cone next.
Drive by. Drive by. Sometimes you drive by. Sometimes you sniper.
Good.
I like to accelerate the last 5.
Good. Notice it's not blowing your elbow though. This is blowing your elbow. Make myself a footstep there. Okay. His feet were going 1,000,000 miles an hour. We wouldn't go anywhere. Not stopping to start. So that's the L. The next one's going to be the
Z.
Z run.
You've warmed up to do this drill. Do it right. Make me see it.
Now, if you can start to picture this from the top down, you can start to see the cuts become a little bit more aggressive. So you guys can still start over there. Still there. So now you're going to come across. You're going to cut back at a 45. So this becomes a less than 90 cut.
You tear up some grass at 90 cut.
Okay, go ahead. Let's see cuts. Here, diagonal.
I'll go
Straight,
I'll go.
right.
Go to the cone. 45 to your right. Weave underneath. Come around. Weave to me. 45 to your right. Weave to me. 45. Accelerate to the chair. Accelerate to the chair. Make a play. Accelerate to the chair. Make a play. We're on TV now. Let me see something. Coming to your left, 45. Keep your feet grinding under your head. Weave. 45 break. Weave. 45. Go get it. Go get it. Go get it. Weave. Go get it. Turn over. Go get it. Take a play. Play on your left.
Good. Excellent job. Excellent. Excellent. L's, Z's. You can then cut W's. Now we're starting to open it up a little bit. Now you're just going to cut here. W. So now you're here. I never saw what's a guy's receiver from the 49ers was so great. Gary Rush. He played in the worst stadium ever. I never lived in that stadium. Kansas State Park. That son of a bitch never fell down. He makes some of the sickest 7 and 6 round cuts I've ever seen. Oh, no.
Ground is moist. I can't take it. Ground is wet.
Slip. Never slip.
You're an athlete. You should be able to do it on ice.
W's now. See the W? You guys can see the shape? Visualize the shape. It'll help you on the drill. Go ahead.
Too far. Or your stance on the curve.
Try to stay
Keep your feet moving on the pivot. Darren Woodson would put his hand down. And the other group, the rest of the group, would put their hand down. And when I would watch that go through, I would make it sound like, woo! Come on, show us how you can dance. That's it. See the improvement from one trip to the next. See the improvement from one trip to the next. Watch this again. All right. Watch this happen again. Right, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Exhale, exhale. I don't have that yet. Okay? You guys look at me. I don't know. Joe, I don't know. And incidentally, I don't know if you guys are watching all the action that was going on from here down, from the shin down. Let's just look at this drill. This head cross the side. This is problem. It's not a one-time upset. In most cases, it's some sort of microfraction that starts to happen, and it appreciates the strong break and the back. Tremendous foot conditioning drill. I think Joe would probably admit to it. Probably use this as much for injury prevention as it did for speed training. It's probably an equal mixture. He was always talking about conditioning your feet. Conditioning your feet. So it expands the second and third. You start to understand some of the simple progressions. I wish I had time to show you some of these concepts progressions. But that's what really this simple progression, 20 yards a turn, how much direction turn? Because he's going to I think he did. I think it's going to be his drill. Call it direction turn. Use this progression. Call it one direction. Step one. I think you guys will find tremendous benefit when you start to tweak yourself. You start to make it pictures and matches for your specific needs. Joe, I thank you for sharing this with me, and I thank you for letting me see it. Sure. Thank you. Guys, thank you very much.